Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the DucksNPucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, and my co-host, Eddie Jones, bringing you the action of the Ducks this past week. And pretty wild week that we had with the Ducks, winning some games, losing some games, tons of injuries, which we'll get to all of that. The way that the week went, the Ducks finished up the road trip in Edmonton, Eddie. They ended up actually, winning this game and edging out the Oilers, but we'll talk about there was some drama at the end, too, with Patrick Maroon. But as far as the game goes, the Ducks played really well in this one. And it looked like they were going to shut out Edmonton, but they ended up winning 2-1 and hanging on at the very end.
Yeah, and it concluded a pretty good 5-game road trip. There was a couple of rocky performances against Montreal and Toronto, and even Ottawa, you could say, with them having to come back in the third period and win that game. But they finish it with a pretty good record, and they come to this game, and most of them you would expect to be tired after being on the road for 5 games, and they come out and they play a pretty strong road game. They only let 1 goal in. They get goals from Pirri and Perry, and Gibson ends up having a strong game, and I think it's an important win with the race, with LA being so tight.
Yeah, say Perry and Perry 10 times fast, and that's great. I even tweeting it out, people notice when I've been doing it. It's been difficult with both of their names, but yeah, as you talked about, they both scored in this game. The Ducks got a little lax at the end of the third there after they got the first goal by Edmonton, and they were able to hold on. So it was still a good performance overall. There was a controversial offsides call at the very end that went in the Ducks' favor, but I don't really think it would have mattered in the outcome of the game. I mean, yeah, there was a couple seconds left that Edmonton would have had it in the zone, but that really wasn't the story after the game. The story after the game was Patrick Maroon. He takes the puck at the end and goes and skates off the ice. Stewart tries to get it from him, and Maroon ends up throwing it in the trash. And, he talked about this, Eddie, and, he knows playing on the Ducks that at the end of the game, the Ducks pick up the puck, they go give it to Boudreau. So he goes and takes it and does what he does. And it's kind of interesting to see everybody's reactions. I mean, there was a lot of fans that were really, upset at Maroon. There were other people like myself that just kind of laughed it off and thought it was funny. And then you see, Maroon later tweet out that, it was just a joke. And I just thought it was comedy. But what did you think, Eddie? Were you upset at Patrick Maroon? Do you think he was joking around? What's your take on the whole ordeal?
I thought it was funny right from the beginning when I first heard about it. I mean, a lot of people, in my opinion, I think they overacted a little bit. I don't think anybody really knew that the Ducks were picking up pucks after games, giving them to Boudreau. And even if they did, I mean, it's different with Maroon being a former player. Maybe if it had been, Connor McDavid or Taylor Hall and they had to pick it up and throw it in the garbage just out of being a sore loser, then maybe. But, I mean, we saw Maroon talking with some of the Ducks players before the game. He's obviously friends with a lot of them still. He's been at the organization for the last few years. So I think it's just in good fun. I mean, I don't really get anything from it. I think he ended up going to get it back out for them after the game. I mean, it was just a joke, a little joke between old teammates. I think a lot of people took it the wrong way as unsportsmanlike, but it's hard to say. But he did end up tweeting it out and clarifying it, so I don't really think there's anything wrong with the situation.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, some of the people on our staff went to an event with the Ducks this week, and the Ducks clarified too that Maroon did end up giving the puck back to the team. So I don't know if he personally gave it to Boudreau. I don't know about that, but he definitely gave it back to the team. So just so everybody knows, it ended up back with the Ducks, and it didn't get lost or still in the trash or whatever. So if he did it out of frustration initially, maybe he did, but it's over now. So he gave it back, and he's going to look forward to the off season watching the Ducks. Unfortunately, obviously Edmonton's not going to make the playoffs, but the Ducks then came home, faced another Canadian team. Well, they faced all Canadian teams this week, but they came home and they played Calgary. And just like you and I talked about, Eddie, we thought this game might be high scoring, and man, was this a high scoring game? 11 goals scored in this game, 8 by Anaheim. 3 right off the bat in the first 7 minutes of the game. Hiller gets pulled, which is unfortunate for him. He's played 8 games now against the Ducks since joining Calgary, and he's lost 7 of those games, getting pulled in 3 of them. So, I guess a word to the wise, Eddie, for Calgary, the next time they play the Ducks next season, don't put Hiller in net because the Ducks really have his number, and it showed in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't there next year. So every time he seems to come into Anaheim, I mean, he just gets lit up. And even like we said last podcast, is every time the Ducks play Calgary, even if it's in Anaheim or not, it's a high scoring game. Barring that 1-0 win that they had at the beginning of the season, but. It's what we expected. I think maybe it was a little bit more than we expected, being an 11-goal game. I mean, the Ducks jumped out to a huge start in the first period and continued on it early in the second, going up 5-0. And then obviously the Gibson injury, Andersen has to come out cold on the bench. He lets in 3 goals on 5 shots, and the Ducks end up potting goals in between each Calgary goal and finishing the period up 7-3. And I mean, a lot of people, including me, were still even disappointed with that first period. I mean, we all knew they were most likely going to win the game up 7-3. It would take a ridiculous comeback, and I don't think anybody thought the game was going to finish 8-7 for Calgary. But the second periods have been a struggle for the Ducks all year, and we really want them to finish the season strong defensively, especially against teams who are struggling to score goals. And I think that was the only disappointing thing of the game. Obviously, they come back out in the third period. Gibson comes back out and they play a strong defensive game and finish only them scoring a goal in the third period. And I think it was strong. I think it was good for Gibson to get back in the game. Obviously, we find out after the game that Freddie actually suffered a concussion on a play during the second period. So, I mean, we all hope he's okay. But it looks like from that situation, our goalie going into the playoffs is going to be Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, what happened with Andersen, we still don't know the exact play. Going back, looking at the game, there is a play that we posted up on YouTube on youtube.com/DucksNPucks podcast. It's up on there. It shows a play on one of the goals in the second period where it looks like Fowler jumped. Well, I mean, he does jump over Andersen, but it looks like he may or may not have clipped Andersen in the head with his skate. It's kind of hard to tell. When you go back, you can watch the video. It looks like maybe he hits him there. I don't know. It looked kind of iffy, but that's really the only play in the period that it looks like some kind of contact was made, unless, I don't know if maybe he took a puck high or something on a shot. Not really sure, but we'll get to the updates on that too from the practice that happened yesterday. We'll talk all about that. But yeah, Gibson came back in and he played well. We had 4 goalies in this game, and he's the only one that didn't give up a goal. So that's why I had said he was the player of the game. Not because the Ducks offense wasn't scoring. Trust me, there were plenty of guys on there. But I mean, out of everybody, Gibson was the only one that was holding down the fort really for Anaheim, and it was good to see him come back. It looked like he was just maybe shaken up a little bit, obviously, because he was able to finish out the rest of the game. But yeah, it's just amazing when the Ducks play the Flames. I don't know what the deal is, but it's always 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 goals scored in some of these games. It's just crazy. And the Ducks now, they tied the league record for consecutive home wins against the same team, which it's 23 now. It's just crazy, Eddie, and they have a chance to break that next season. It could be 24 games in a row. I feel bad for Calgary, I really do. I even had some Calgary fans sitting next to me to the game, and I kudos to them because they actually stayed almost till the end of the game. So, I have to give their hats off to them. But man, what a rough ride they've had in Anaheim.
Yeah, and whenever you can get close to passing a record that was set in the 80s when the Flyers just dominated the Penguins for 7 straight years, I mean, it's getting to a ridiculous level. Every time that Calgary comes into Honda Center, we just kind of joke around that it's a guaranteed win, but for the last 23 games, it has been a guaranteed win, and they've won every single one. And like I said, it's getting to a ridiculous point now that if they can break this record next year, I mean, I don't know how long, with Calgary struggling, I don't know how long this could go on for.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, that record is regular season wins, because I know some people bring it up that Calgary beat the Ducks in the playoffs. I can't remember the date, but it was way back when. But that record is during the regular season. Just to clarify, in case that comes up again. But yeah, I mean, the Ducks look good in this game. We thought everything was great. We go into April Fool's Day, and then it just goes chaos on social media. Basically, the Ducks report all these injuries that come out. Some of them we already knew, but they were updated. Others were newer ones. And it was just crazy before this Vancouver game, because there were people that didn't believe me, didn't believe the Ducks. It was so funny, Eddie, on Friday. There were people that thought Eric Stevens, myself, and the Ducks were all putting out this stuff, falsely. And I was just cracking up. I'm like, I, I really don't think we're going to put out false information about a shoulder injury or a concussion or all this. I mean, it was just crazy mayhem that Friday morning, trying to, put all the information out and follow it. And I just felt bad. I really wish it wouldn't have come out on April 1st, Eddie.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be really in really bad taste to report injuries as a joke on April Fool's Day. So I think, a lot of people knew that they were serious, and what we feared about David Perron came true. It was longer than we expected, and he won't be back until at least 2 more weeks, which means he'll miss a couple playoff games at most, and or at least. And then if he misses the 4 weeks, he'll be gone for the whole first round and part of the second round. So that's going to be a big loss. I think we already expected that. We've been without him since March 20th. But the odd ones were Rakell did not have the flu, which we
Right.
expected at first. He ends up having appendicitis and gets his appendix removed. And if everybody remembers the situation that Getzlaf had earlier last year, is he had the same issue and he was out for about a week. So I believe that's what the Ducks reported on Rakell. He's going to be out a week. We hope to see him back in the last few games before the season against Colorado and Washington, just to get him some playing time before then. And then, of course, the Frederik Andersen news comes out that he got a concussion, which to me was the biggest surprise. A lot of people were reporting that he wasn't on the ice at practice. A lot of us thought he just went out in that game against Calgary because he had let in 3 goals on 5 shots and Gibson was ready to go. But it ends up, coming out that he has a concussion, which is obviously terrible news. But it does solidify the goalie situation now, because you wouldn't expect him to be back for at least a week.
Yeah, exactly. And, we talked about all the injuries, and there's some updates too from the practice yesterday that he was out there. I mean, obviously Hudobin came back up and he's still with the team. So that's, putting that up in issue. Wagner came back up as well on Friday. And that was to cover because Rakell is now out, at least for a week, as we learned. There was also an update on Despres as well. They said on the pregame, or I'm sorry, the preview on both the Ducks and the Dallas sites that he has a concussion. So there's all kinds of just craziness going on, and also during this, Theodore was sent back down to San Diego. So I mean, Friday was just crazy, and so the Ducks went into this game against Vancouver with a little bit of a different lineup. They brought in Wagner. He played on the 4th line, which actually was probably the best line in this game, Eddie, because the Ducks in this game, this is just kind of a frustrating game. They started the game well. They get a goal by Josh Manson right away in the first 48 seconds. After that, the game kind of, goes back and forth. Then the second period, pretty much Vancouver dominates the second period. I mean, that's just the way it went. They outshot them 13-8, and they carried the play. Then the beginning of the third, Wagner makes a great move, goes towards the net, doesn't score, but Thompson gets the loose change. He scores, and the Ducks kind of looked a little bit better. But then Vancouver comes back. They score the next 2 goals. And, the Ducks didn't really do too much until the end. They, obviously pulled Gibson and they went for it and they couldn't tie it up. But kind of a frustrating game because it just wasn't a 60-minute game by the Ducks, Eddie.
I think the frustrating part, too, is Vancouver was actually sitting back trying to take this game into overtime, and then Nate Thompson scores and makes it 2-1, and they still are sitting back a bit, waiting for their chances. And I think if the Ducks had just kept up the pressure that they had mounting into up until the Nate Thompson goal, I think they would have been fine. But they kind of sat off and let Vancouver sit back, and that's what they were waiting for. And they strike and they score on the Hamhuis goal, and I guess the Ducks are a little bit shocked, and Emerson Edom scores off a rebound, and you're already down now, and you got to fight back with only 7 minutes to go, and obviously they couldn't end up doing it, and I think this is an important game for them. I mean, LA had just lost. You could have, with this win, you could have moved 1 point in front of them. And today would be a whole different situation with LA losing to Dallas last night. If you beat Dallas, you could be 3 points up on LA. If you had won that game, you would have been able to hold it out. But it's disappointing. I think it was they could have at least had a point in this game, and they kind of threw them away.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like you said, we didn't know at the time, but obviously Dallas beat the Kings, so now the Ducks are still in the driver's seat. They can still go on and win the division. And we have another fan question about that we'll get to in a little bit, talking about the matchups. But they're going to play Dallas today. We'll go in and preview that in a little bit. But yeah, it was an opportunity lost. And unfortunately, too, Edom ends up burning the Ducks. He actually has been doing a little bit better with Vancouver now since being traded from the New York Rangers. He's got 4 goals now with them. So he's picked it up a little bit, and kind of hurts when it's your former teammate that burned you. But that's the way it went in this game. And it was just unfortunate. I think, like you said, just really a big chance missed. Thought the Ducks would at least get a point in this game. When they went up 2-1, you felt pretty good about it, but they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, exactly. And, with Wagner coming into this game, I think a lot of us were impressed with his play. I mean, everybody was happy to get him back into the Ducks organization. He came back into San Diego to start, and he had 10 points in 15 games down with San Diego, and was playing on the power play, was playing on the penalty kill, was a +1 rating. He was playing really well, and he comes up in this game, and he ends up getting a really, a hard-working assist on the Nate Thompson goal. And I think that's what we expect from him, honestly, is he's going to work hard. He's going to make the big hits that we saw last season, especially against New Jersey. And I think everybody's happy that he's signed a 2-year extension, and he's going to be here for at least until through the 2017-2018 season.
Oh, absolutely. I've been talking to his parents this last week a lot about what's been going on. They're very happy that he's back, and they're happy that he got the extension. And it's good. He got his first point finally with, not the goals, but, actually with the Ducks, because, he had gotten those 4 goals with Colorado. So hopefully he'll be picking up some more points along the way with the Ducks. I think he will. And I was happy I got a chance to meet him at the end of the game. So that was, the highlight of my night, even though the Ducks lost. So that was some fun there. On the end of the night, I also met a few other fans that I hadn't met before during the game, and I posted some funny photos and whatnot. If you've seen them on the Facebook page, but they're up on there. So that part was always good. It's nice to see everybody and meet some more people in person and whatnot, despite the Ducks losing that game. Eddie, we have another sponsor, so this is the time where I'm going to throw it out there. We have Sons of Hockey. My good friend Josh runs that company. You can check them out at sonsofhockey.com. They sell all kinds of hockey shirts, not just Ducks, but any team, really. They have a handful of teams, not all, but a bunch on there that you can check out. He's also on Twitter at Sons of Hockey, and he's got some shirts that are kind of, similar theme to the Sons of Anarchy theme as well. So check them out. They got some good stuff. They're friends of ours. They support us, and we support them, and we thank them for that. And with that, Eddie, I guess we can go into all the craziness and the updates of all the injuries from practice yesterday. We also learned after the game against Vancouver that Brandon Perri has an upper body injury, so he's out as well. And there was no update from practice yesterday. Ryan Kessler also took a maintenance day and did not play. And it looks like Rakell, they're talking, may skate on Tuesday, and they're hoping he may be back against Colorado. So that's kind of the updates on the forwards. Oh, one more is Perron as well. He was on the ice, but in workout attire. Took some shots at the net, and his shoulder was still somewhat stiff. So that's kind of what happened with all the forwards yesterday. We also expect Lindholm to be back. He was sick, so he looks to be okay. And if you look, there's a video of Despres skating yesterday, and he looked good, Eddie. So, I mean, I know that they mentioned that he had a concussion. I don't know on the website if it's the same deal or what it is, but he looked pretty good yesterday. So, I don't really expect Despres to be out too long, and Andersen was on the ice too. So, I mean, I think the Ducks are gonna hopefully get healthy. But I mean, man, what a crazy week it's been with all these injuries.
Yeah, and it's obviously nice to hear that we'll get Lindholm back tonight. I believe he was just out for the flu, a little bit of a small flu bug whipped through the Ducks lineup. Luckily, it wasn't as bad with Rakell obviously having appendicitis, which I mean maybe it would have been better if he ended up having the flu. But it'll be nice to get him back tonight. Hopefully Despres is back soon. Rakell will be back before playoffs, and Kessler was off for a maintenance day, so he should be playing in tonight in Dallas. So I think it'll be nice to get all those guys back, and then you just got to really look at the guys who could be long term. There's no update on Brandon Pirri, but I don't think hopefully it won't be too long. With Bieksa out, we haven't really heard any updates on Kevin Bieksa. It would be obviously nice to get a guy like him back for playoffs. A great leader in the dressing room. He's a good shutdown defenseman. It'll be nice to get him back. And obviously, Perron, the Perron news is disappointing. We would all love to have him back for game one of the playoffs. Obviously that's not how it's going to be. The earliest he'll come back is probably mid first round. If not, then, it's beginning or middle of the second round at the latest. So, it's going to be a big loss. I think they'll be able to fill the void. They've done it so far in the regular season. And then Freddie Andersen. And that's, I think, to me is the most interesting one, because if he's not back for a week, which I think a lot of us expect with a concussion, they're going to be, played safe with him. Gibson's playing well right now, and there's only one more back-to-back before the season is over. So I think, if he plays, if he's ready to come back, then he probably plays that Sunday against the Capitals, I think, or maybe the Saturday against the Avalanche. I think they waited out till then. Gibson can probably get these next four starts, unless Freddie is healthy enough to come back. But and you look at that, what that does to the starting situation in the playoffs. This is most likely Gibson's net going into the playoffs now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we got to look at these next games coming up. Obviously Dallas today, and then you've got the Jets on Tuesday. You got the Kings Thursday, which of course that one's going to be huge, because who knows what happens the next couple of days here. If we're a point ahead or a point behind, that's going to have big time implications. Colorado on Saturday, who's basically owned us, 3-0 twice this year. So I know the Ducks want to take them out and try and win that game. And then, Washington, as we talked about, the game's not going to matter to them, but it may matter to us for sure. So I think the Ducks do go with Gibson for this next week, like you talked about, and maybe in the back-to-backs they put in Andersen. And it's unfortunate, we've talked about this at nauseum. A lot of people have gone back and forth. Andersen, Freddie, who do you want? And I hate to see anybody get hurt. I don't care who it is. And we'll talk about that too around the league. That happened this week with some other players as well. But I think the Ducks go with Gibson this week. They still control the destiny. They can still, go for first. Obviously they can go all the way down to third too. San Jose's been winning games too, Eddie. But I think after this week, it's really going to be a matter of Nashville or San Jose, kind of the way that the Central Division's gone. And that's a fan question we have that we'll talk about in a little bit. But what do you think as far as the next week and these opponents?
Yeah, obviously tonight is probably going to be the hardest test. The Kings game is going to be hard. I think the Capitals on Sunday, April 10th, they're going to rest a lot of their players, being only 2 games on that day. And, the Ducks might even rest their players with them having to, come back and play, 3 days later, most likely in the playoffs. So that game is going to be interesting. But tonight, the Stars just beat up the Kings 3-2 yesterday. They did us a favor. Now hopefully we can come in and catch them a little bit tired after playing a physical game against the Kings. Get those 2 points tonight and move up to back in first in the Pacific Division. But yeah, like you said, this game on Thursday against the Kings, this could be the decider. Tonight we'll draw even on games played, with the Kings either be, like you said, a point behind, tied, or a point ahead. It all depends on how that game finishes out. And then we have just the game against the Jets until Thursday, and the Kings have a game Monday against Vancouver, a game Tuesday against Calgary before they play us. Because obviously with the game against the Capitals, we have our schedule's a little bit awkward because of that makeup game. So the Kings will always have one more game ahead of us until that Sunday game. But it could come down to it. I mean, that game is a 4-point game. And if somebody's 1 point ahead or 1 point behind, then that could be the decider right there. With the Kings only having one game against Winnipeg after that, and the Ducks having two. Like you said, the Ducks are in the driver's seat right now, and they got to win these next few games, or at least one of these next two games before the Kings game, and then you have to beat the Kings if you want to have a chance at finishing atop the Pacific Division.
Yeah, that's going to be an extremely wild game on Thursday night for sure, especially because it's going to be on the road as well. So that's going to be an intense game, and I'm really hoping that the Ducks ramp it up tonight against Dallas and play a more complete game like they did against Calgary and not the one against Vancouver. Same thing against the Jets as well, which is fan appreciation night. By the way, we gave away our tickets on the podcast contest and on our Facebook one. Two different fans won. They both got 2 tickets to the 400 level. So, I'm happy that we were able to buy those and give away some stuff. And hopefully those 2 fans that won will win some more stuff because the Ducks give away stuff on that night as well. So that's one good thing to look forward to on Tuesday night if you're going to the game. Coming up, after this week, it's going to be the playoffs. And I had another fan question about, who are the Ducks going to play and who should we play and, all that kind of stuff. So we look at the standings now, Eddie. It's a little bit more clear now that the person or the team that wins the Pacific is going to play Nashville. Doesn't look like they're going to catch Chicago, not mathematically, unless some kind of miracle happens. But it looks like it's going to be Nashville, and then it looks like the second place team, which it could be the Ducks, Sharks, or Kings, but whoever the second place team is most likely going to be the Sharks, and then either the Ducks or the Kings. So the question is basically, would you rather face Nashville or San Jose? And, I don't really care. I want the team to be healthy and play well, which has obviously been the 2 biggest issues going forward. But looking at these 2 teams, Eddie, the Ducks have not played well against Nashville, and they've played better against San Jose. But if you look at those games against Nashville, those are all early in the season, October, beginning of November. So I can't really put a read on Nashville as far as the Ducks playing. They haven't played them in so long. So that's one thing to take into consideration. And I think we talked about this too. The other thing with Nashville you got to look at that's difficult is their record and playing all those teams in the Central Division, which has been very tough, Eddie.
Yeah, and like you said, those are the 2 most likely situations, barring a miracle that Chicago could fall below Nashville now. With having a game in hand and being 5 points up, that would be, something we wouldn't expect to see. And Minnesota somehow jumping in front of Nashville is almost out of the question now, and Colorado's pretty much dead in the water. So those are the 2 teams we have to look at right now. And like you said, it's tough with Nashville having to play all those, playing Dallas and St. Louis and Chicago and even Minnesota so many times this season. And they're not going to win a lot of those games. They're a good team too, but Dallas and St. Louis and Chicago this year are on a whole nother level, and their record could be skewed a little bit. So. You look at their road record, and that kind of, testament to that. They're only 18, 15, and 7 on the road. They have a decent home record as well, and they're a confusing team to play against if you look at them. We all expect Pekka Rinne to be an elite goaltender, but he's not at that level anymore. There are nights where he has flashes of that, and you never want to risk going against them in a 7-game series where he could just get hot and dominate you. And they're a little bit different team as well, with having 2 30-goal scorers on their team in James Neal and Philip Forsberg. They're a different team than they used to. They still have Shea Weber on defense, so they can play you solid on defense as well. So it's a tough matchup, that one. I think the Ducks could get past San Jose or Nashville. Maybe just for the familiarity, you'd want to play San Jose, but it's always nice winning the Pacific Division and from where they started at the beginning of the season, being able to beat out the Kings and win the Pacific Division again would always be pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between the other seasons, Eddie. A lot of people, when I go to the games, they tell me, I don't care about a Pacific Division banner. There's 3 up there, and who really cares? We need to have the banner. And I totally agree. Obviously, you want to go and you want to win the banner, and you want to have your name on the cup. That's the ultimate goal. Okay, we're not going to argue about that, obviously. But this situation is a little bit different for the Ducks, and here's why. The last 3 seasons, they were way out in front. They really didn't have to battle that hard for the Pacific towards the end of the season. They were way ahead. And I'm not saying that they didn't battle hard. Obviously, hockey's a hard sport, and they battle all season long. But the point is this season they've had to come back from being so terrible in the end of October, beginning of November, for them to come all the way back from last place in the Pacific to launch all the way to first. To me, that's a huge accomplishment and a huge momentum. So winning the Pacific Division, yeah, whatever. It's another banner. But this season is different because you rally around, you use it as a motivation. You come from so far back. And like you said, not only do you win it, but if you can beat it out against your division, your most division, opponent that is rivaled throughout all hockey. I mean, the Sharks up there too, but it's the Ducks Kings, obviously. To beat them, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a huge accomplishment. And I think if the Ducks were to play Nashville, we lost to Nashville in the playoffs a few years back, so there's a little bit of payback there. So I think the Ducks would like to win the division and maybe play Nashville and take them out when they did to us, 4 or 5 seasons ago, and have the Kings and the Sharks battle it out. I mean, I'm not going to wish whoever wins or loses, and I don't like playing that kind of game, but I'm just telling you that's kind of what could happen if the Ducks win the division and why it might be beneficial. I mean, if they come in second and they play the Sharks, so be it. We'll go after them too. But that's just kind of my take, Eddie.
Yeah, and like you said, they've been battling all season, and that's kind of what's been different for the Ducks, compared to last season's where they've kind of just had it easy and they've clinched playoffs easily and they've clinched the division pretty easily with 5-10 games to go even sometimes. So I think that's the difference this year, and they're a different team. They're a defensively responsible team. They're starting to score goals. Their special teams are amazing, and it's a whole different team to what we've seen over the last 3 seasons. And I think with them having them having to battle back and right now, and they're setting goals. I mean, obviously the goal is the Stanley Cup, and they set it at the beginning of the season with the slogan that they had, and they close isn't close enough. They want to be there, they want to get back in there, and obviously they want to get the banner that counts. But you got to set goals, and right now I'm sure their goal is to finish above LA and win that Pacific Division, and then from there you can set the goal as beating Nashville and winning the Stanley Cup and so on from there. And I think that's what they've been doing all season, and they've got to battle it out here, and they've got to win these next few games to finish the top of the division. And I think it will give them a lot of momentum if they can eventually come back from where they are and win the Pacific Division.
I completely agree with everything you said, Eddie. No doubt. I mean, I think that's going to be the key if they win the division. And like we said, if they don't and they end up in second or third and they play the Sharks, that's fine too. We'll deal with it then. Speaking of the playoffs, we have some fan questions about that, and we'll address them right now. Alexander talks about the defense, which you mentioned, Eddie, and he wants to know, what would the lineup look like, barring all these injuries, which again, that's hard to say, but what would it look like, assuming that everybody's healthy? And I think if we look at the Ducks lineup, and if the defense was all healthy, obviously Theodore went back down, which he may come back up. I think the pairings, I mean, you'd kind of have to go with what they've done before. I think you would go with Fowler and Dupree, Lindholm and Manson, and then Bieksa and Vatanen. I think those would be the pairings you'd go with. You'd have Stoner rotating in, Holzer rotating in, and then maybe Theodore, depending on the injury situation and what's going on with the goals and their playoff stuff. So that's kind of how I look at the defense. Again, and, this is just if they're healthy, Eddie.
Yeah, and like I said, I think if they're healthy, which we all hope that they are. I mean, Despres and Lindholm should be back tonight. Despres should be back before the playoffs. I know there's no update on BX, and we all hope he's back. But right now, as it stands, I think they'll all be healthy going into the playoffs. I mean, a little optimistic, but like you said, that has to be the lineup. That's what they've run with all season. Those are the 6 guys that have played for the majority of the games, with Stoner and Holzer coming in as the guys to replace anybody who gets injured. And I think obviously Theodore is an option you could have, but the goals are most likely going to make the playoffs down there, and I think that he's going to be a key part to their team. So unless we really need him, I think he stays down in the playoffs, and I'm sure that's what they want for him and the goals too. So those are the 6 guys you got to go with if you're healthy. And, Stoner and Holzer aren't bad options to be able to rotate in if somebody gets injured.
Yeah, completely agree. We all have another question from Matt. He also asks about the injuries, and he wonders, besides Perron, is there anybody else that we don't think will play come playoff time? I mean, obviously we know Perron's out. Separated shoulder, which the Ducks finally confirmed. If you remember, Allers had talked about it on the Ducks pregame show a couple weeks ago and mentioned that. So he's going to be out for a while. I guess the only other real question is probably going to be Andersen, maybe Despres, but Despres was skating well yesterday. Looked like he was in there. So, I think Andersen is really the only other question come playoff time. And maybe Perri, which we don't know. There's been no update, so I can't really speak about what's going on with him because the team hasn't really said anything yet.
Yeah, and obviously Perron is the one that's for sure. We know we won't have him back till mid first round or late, even late second round. That's I think the prognosis right now is just 2 to 4 weeks from today or from when they announced it on Friday. So I think that is the likely one. Like you said, Andersen with a concussion, that could be anything from a week to the time that Despres missed. You never know with concussion, so that's always a tough one. I think with Gibson being ready, that at least we have one of them healthy, and that's why you always like to have two, a 1A and a 1B. You can always go with one if the other one gets injured. And then, like you said, Despres and Bieksa too. There hasn't been too much update on them. We'd hope that they come back. I don't think it's too serious. Otherwise, we probably would have got an update on Friday with the updates on Perron and Rakell and Andersen and everybody else. So I think, like you said, it just comes down to Perron, possibly Andersen, and it all depends on what Pirri's injury is.
Yeah, and then speaking of the forward situation too, I mean, with Pirri out, Wagner's now up. We had another question from Alex. He asked about Santarelli and that he may appear to be in the doghouse because he's been scratched lately. I don't really know if he's been in the doghouse, Eddie. I really think that he's just kind of been the odd man out. And I mean, he did have some flashes earlier in the season where he was scoring some goals. If you remember, Horkoff was out and Santarelli played on the top line for a little bit. He played on some of the other lines too. And, he had a good streak there for about a week or two where he was getting some points. But I think he's just really the odd man out in the forward situation. And I think the Ducks wanted Wagner to come up because of the way he's been playing and give him the opportunity. But I do think Santarelli is going to play this next week a good amount, especially if Perri is out, Perron out. You don't really have a lot of other options in the forwards unless the Ducks are going to reach down into San Diego and pull some people up. So I think we'll see him a little bit more this week.
Yeah, for sure. And really, he's always been the odd man out this season. He was, switching spots with Stewart and Maroon at times where he was getting scratched. So I'm not too surprised that he is the odd man out right now. Stewart's play has been better. Obviously, he was the one that solidified that spot on the first line with Perron and Getzlaf at times. So I think, like you said, Santarelli should check in this week with Rakell being out, Perron still out, Pirri most likely being out. I think they'd rather bring Santarelli and then call up somebody from the goals right now, like Richie or Nason. So I think in that aspect, he should play. Come playoffs, though, if everybody is healthy, Rakell will be back. Pirri might be back, then yeah, he will be the guy who's scratched, and it's not because he's a bad player. It's just like you said, he's the odd man out. Everybody else has solidified spots in the lineup. They've got chemistry going, so I think he's just the odd man out.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be the odd man out, especially if everybody's healthy. If not, then he will be back in there, and he will get some decent playing time for sure. Though Wagner is going to be in there as well. Looking around the league this week, some news came out recently. We had the Duncan Keith incident that happened this last week. He ended up getting suspended for 6 games, Eddie, and he's going to miss 1 game for the action that he took against the Minnesota Wild. A lot of people upset about this, suspension. Thought he should have gotten more games out of this. What do you think, Eddie? He's going to miss, the rest of the regular season and 1 playoff game. Do you think he should have gotten more?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's done it before. We saw him do it against Jeff Carter, the Kings, in the playoffs in 2013, and that one, in my opinion, was worse. And he only got 1 game for that, and that shows you how much they regard playoff games in suspensions. That should have been, even as a first time, that should have been at least a 4-game suspension. He's gotten a suspension for elbowing before, which he got 5 games for, I believe, and now he goes into this one and does another brutal high stick that it could have broken Charlie Coyle's jaw if he caught him in the right spot and the way he swung his stick, and he only gets 6 games. I mean, I'm happy he's at least missing 1 playoff game. In my opinion, I think playoff games, just like they do in the OHL, playoff games should be the same as regular season games. They should be taken into that consideration. I mean, there's a similar situation in the OHL right now with the London Knights, and Max Jones got suspended 12 games in the playoffs for a headshot on a player. He's a previous offender, and they don't take into consideration that their playoff games. They say, well, that hit deserves a 12-game suspension. He's suspended 12 games. Playoffs, regular season doesn't matter, and I think that's something they should something they should do in the NHL. I know it's tough, and I know he's a key player to a team that's going to make, hopefully for them, it's going to make a long Stanley Cup playoff run. But that was a brutal stick swing that could have, really injured him. I think, that's also something that comes into consideration. Charlie Coyle wasn't injured, so that makes it a little bit less of a suspension. But I was hoping for him to miss at least, 3 or 4 playoff games. I think that's how bad the situation was.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the play, you can see Duncan Keith cock his wrist, aim right at the face of him, and swing. I mean, that was completely deliberate. And if you don't think it was, go back and watch the video. I mean, that was just a cheap shot all the way around. There's just no way of putting it. And and I agree with you. I think he should get a couple more games in the playoffs. But I mean, that's the NHL, and that's the way that they do it. And it was interesting when I was at the game on Friday. Some of the Duck fans were upset too. They said, "Well, what if it was Perry? What if it was Kessler? I mean, how many games would they have gotten?" I really don't know, but that's a good question. It might have been maybe more for them. I don't know, but hopefully our players don't engage in that kind of behavior, Eddie. And most of the time they don't.
Yeah, and I think it's just the fact that he's done it before, and he only gets 6 games. I mean, it's just, it kind of amazes me in a way. I mean, when it first happened, I said he should get 10 games, and I was taking into consideration the playoffs too. I mean, that's a terrible play. Like you said, he means to do it, and then after the play, he pretends that he was falling back. You can see him cock his arm back and just swing through at his face, and obviously it's not as bad if he has 2 hands on a stick and he swings at a guy's head, but it's close. I mean, and the fact that he's done it before, and he's done it with the butt end, with the blade end of his stick to Jeff Carter, and only got 1 game for that, and he's been suspended twice in his career. I mean, if this is any other guy on maybe a non-playoff team or anything, even just a guy who isn't Duncan Keith of the Chicago Blackhawks, I think he gets 10, if not more games like that. It's just a brutal play, and it's disappointing to see that they seem to be a little bit lenient on the suspension.
Yeah, and stuff regarding Chicago, unfortunately, and we've seen that this season, which that's a whole nother story. But the other news that came out around the league, the unfortunate news is Steven Stamkos from Tampa Bay has a blood clot in his right arm, is going to require surgery, and he is going to be out 1 to 3 months, Eddie, which, depending on what happens with Tampa Bay, I mean, it could be the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that's a huge blow for them where they are right now. They're going to have to probably play Detroit or Boston in that first round unless they can catch Florida, and then they would play the Islanders. But it's just a huge blow for them. I mean, he's their superstar. He's their captain, and he's going to be gone at least, if he's gone for the lower thing of a month. He's gone at least until the second round if they make it that far, and if it's 3 months, he's done. No matter how far, if they even make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, he's done for that. For the whole season, and it's a huge blow. I mean, they ended up winning against New Jersey last night, and I think they still have enough talent to maybe make it past the first and even the second round. But I think with him being such a key player for that team, and even being the captain as well, it's going to be tough for them to go far. And it's disappointing to see a player of Stamkos' quality go out right before the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, and I talked about this too on social media. I mean, obviously you and I are big Ducks fans, but we're also hockey fans too. And it's just unfortunate to see anybody get injured, period. I don't care if it's somebody on another team that you hate. You don't want to wish ill will upon anybody. And it's just unfortunate for Tampa Bay. That's, one of their keys to success is, obviously Steven Stamkos. So it's just heartbreaking for that team. I really feel for them. I mean, you just don't wish ill will upon anybody. That's the bottom line. And I hope he recovers. I know about the blood clot situation, not me personally, but I've had people close to me that have had to deal with that. So it is a scary thing. It is something that is serious and it has to be taken care of. And if it's not, obviously it's not life-threatening immediately. And I know he'll get all the treatment he needs with Tampa Bay. I'm sure they'll take care of him. But it is an injury that can be serious if left unattended. And it's something that is unfortunate. I just don't like to see that. anybody, any player. I don't care who you are, or what team you root for or dislike. Even the Kings. I'm serious. I don't wish any of their players to have that either. I rather play a team and do the best you can and beat them at full force, and that's the way it should go. So it's just unfortunate, especially being a superstar too. So I just wish him well, Eddie. Tampa Bay, if they can power through without him, that'd be a great story for the postseason this year.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just scary. It's got to be scary for the player, mentally to be in that position and being ready for the playoffs, 4 games away. You guys bounce back from struggling just like the Ducks did this year, and they're battling for the Atlantic Division with their rivals, the Florida Panthers. It's an eerily similar situation, but it's tough. It's a big loss. It's like us losing Getzlaf or Perry right before the playoffs. I mean, imagine how much that would impact us and on the player itself too. It's got to be a scary situation for him. And I mean, this could realistically, with him not being re-signed there yet, and all the rumors and the talks around it, that game, the last game he played, could have been the last game he played in a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey too. So it's a really disappointing situation. And if that's the last game, it's a sad end to his career in Tampa Bay.
And another twist to this story too, Eddie, is the Druin situation, which has come up too since all this happened. So that's another plot twist. Maybe Druin comes in, redeems himself, and helps Tampa Bay go farther in the playoffs. Which, again, that's another player that I don't wish ill will on him. I mean, I think he made some maybe poor decisions or had some poor judgment in some of the things that he did this season. But if he's able to turn it around and help contribute to Tampa Bay, that'd be a good ending for him as well. Maybe to correct some wrongs and help Tampa Bay in the postseason.
Yeah, and he's the most realistic option right now. When you lose Steven Stamkos, you lose goal scoring. You lose key aspects to their offense. And I think if you're going to bring anybody up from the minor system, he's the most dynamic offensive prospect you have down there. So I think they've got to at least give him a shot. I think maybe the situation is beyond him being able to be called up. I don't know. It all depends on his relationship with Eisman right now. But I think if you want to have a shot, and you want a guy who can possibly be a difference maker and help you during the playoffs, I think he has to be the guy you call up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tampa Bay, in this next couple weeks in the playoffs. Before we go, I also want to, I don't know if we mentioned it earlier in the show, Eddie, but we got to tip our hat to Iron Man, Andrew Cogliano. He's going to be playing in his 700th straight game against the Dallas Stars tonight, which he's 6th all time on the list, Eddie. And talk about, also another phenomenal player. I mean, wow. I mean, that's just impressive all the way around.
Yeah, and I mean, he seemed to, been beat up the last few games. He's gone off in a couple games to the bench, to the locker room, and he's always come back, and it seems to be what he's done his whole career. And it's just amazing that he's never been injured in his whole career, and the style of hockey he plays, the physical brand of hockey he plays, the speed he plays it at, and the size of the player. He's not a big guy either. And he plays a physical, hard forecheck game, gets to the dirty areas, and he's about to play his 700th straight game in the NHL. It's just amazing. I mean, kudos to him, and I mean, we hope he ends up finishing his career without, sustaining an injury.
Yeah, and then we've seen him get, not injuries that have knocked him out, but we've seen him get some where he's been hit in the face, against Chicago of all teams and some other teams too. But he's an Iron Man. That's just the best way to put it. And I did want to mention too. We gave away the tickets already to Fan Appreciation, but we're also giving away a free customized jersey. It doesn't have to be Ducks. I mean, we hope you pick Ducks, but it could be any team. But it's from Goalie Monkey in Santa Ana. They do really good work. Custom jersey, team player. It is subject to whatever jerseys they have. If they don't have it, I'm sure I can work it out and we'll help whoever wins. But if you go on NHL.com, they have a bracket challenge. We're on there as Ducks and Pucks, of course. Sign up for it. The second and third place winners will also get free Ducks and Pucks gear as well. The only thing I ask, if you sign up, please email us your entry info. Return email that you want it to be contacted at and your name. And you can send it to info@ducksandpucks.com. The reason why I ask that is the NHL doesn't really track, I don't think, who applies or puts in or whatever. So last season I was trying to track down the winners, which was difficult. So if you sign up, please do that. so I can make sure that the appropriate top 3 winners this year will get those prizes. And thank you for participating and supporting us this week. It's been another crazy week, Eddie. We're going to come back with another podcast next week. We're going to wait till the end of the season. So we'll wait till the game is done against Washington, and then we'll talk about how the final week went, and we'll preview whoever it's going to be that we're going to play next week, Eddie. So let's go Ducks, and see you at the end of the season.